Today we're going to demonstrate both committee debate and floor debate for our legislative program in Texas Youth in Government. Some of our debate format is specific to Texas Youth in Government, but it is based on the order of debate in our real Texas legislature and on Robert's Rules of Order. Our first demonstration is committee debate. Committee debate takes place when bills are assigned to committees based on their subject matter. Here, the presiding officer is referred to as Mr. Chair or Madam Chair. After the bill is laid out by the chairperson, the bill author gives his or her opening remarks. Then next is the question and answer period, where each committee member has 1 minute to question the bill author. Members cannot question the bill author again unless unanimous consent is granted by the committee. This is followed by the proponent-opponent debate period, where all proponent speakers will speak first, followed by all opponent speakers. If there are no opponent speakers, the committee chair has the option of appointing one. Following the proponent-opponent period is the amendment period, where each amendment that has been offered is presented, debated, and then possibly adopted. After all amendments have been considered, the author of the bill gives his or her final summation. When the bill author has completed this, a motion is in order. The most common motion in committee for bill disposition is, I move for favorable recommendation of this bill for House or Senate action. If amendments have been adopted, then the motion should be for favorable recommendation of this bill as amended for House or Senate action. Note that since a committee is not a quorum of either chamber, the members cannot vote to pass a bill. If the motion for favorable recommendation carries, the bill will be added to the House or Senate calendar and possibly be debated in that chamber.
This committee will now come to order. My name is Jerry Mikulski, and I will be chairing this committee. This is my clerk, Maddie Medill. The first bill on the table is Senate Bill number 4. Will the clerk please read the caption of the first bill?
An act requiring that the Texas state legislators forfeit their salary if, at the end of the fiscal year, the state budget is unbalanced and declaring an emergency.
Is the bill author present?
Yes.
The bill author should now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chandler Pruitt, Richardson, YMCA. Fellow delegates, I'm here to propose a bill that presents a solution to the ever-increasing problem that has found its way into the Texas legislature, the unbalanced budget. Over the last 2 years, the unbalanced budget has continued to eat away at the economy, promote inflation, and increase Texas's overall debt. This proposal forces the Texas state legislature to forfeit their salary if, at the end of the fiscal year, the state budget remains unbalanced. This penalty creates an incentive for the legislators to cut back on excessive spending, earmarks, and unneeded government bureaucracies, while ultimately becoming a more efficient government that stays within its means. Each legislator makes a total of $7,200 a year. As you can see, this is not a huge salary, therefore it is not a very drastic fine. However, it does create some motivation to stay within the budget. The budget for the fiscal year 2000 to 2001 was estimated to be $101.8 billion, and the amount actually spent was $101.9 billion. Similarly, the budget for the fiscal year 2002 to 2003 was estimated to be $114.1 billion, when the amount actually spent was $115.9 billion. The budget deficit amount has continued to rise up until the last fiscal year of 2008 to 2009. Our government must be held accountable for this continued rise in the flow of taxpayers' money. We taxpayers are footing the bill for the interest that stems from our state's debt. We must demand that our legislators begin planning ahead by starting a fiscal reform now. Concluding each fiscal year with a balanced budget is possible, but it is obvious that our legislators must be motivated to do so. Our legislators are currently addicted to spending money that they simply do not have, and it is up to us to ask that they limit the amount of expensive legislation that they pass. It's time for Texas to do something about their ever-increasing debt, and this bill will essentially start our state on the path of arriving at a balanced budget and staying within our means. Thank you, and I yield the remainder of my time to my closing summation.
The speaker has yielded 3 minutes to her closing summation. We'll now move to the question and answer period. Please note that all proponents and opponents are due by the end of this period. Are there any questions from the bill author?
Mr. Speaker,
What purpose does the gentleman rise?
Austin Pruitt, Richardson YMCA. I rise to ask the bill author a question.
Does the bill author yield?
Yes.
Ma'am, I just have a question about your bill. I want to know, do all the legislators have to forfeit their salary, or is this just one or a few, but every single legislator?
Every legislator that was involved in the fiscal year budget deficit, not the incoming ones that were elected.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
What purpose does the gentleman rise?
Stephen Hayward for Eastside YMCA. Rise to question the bill author.
Does the bill author yield?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you have some numbers for me. Do you know what the current deficit of the state of Texas is?
Currently, it is around $28 billion.
28 billion. And what is the projected revenue for next year, or what is our budget for this coming fiscal year? Do you have that?
I don't have that information at this time.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the bill author?
Mr. Chair,
What purpose does the lady rise?
Claire Cahoon, Dallastown North YMCA. I rise to question the bill author.
Does the bill author yield?
Yes.
What about legislators that are trying to maintain the budget? Are they going to have their salaries reduced as well?
Their salaries will be reduced as well.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Mr. Chair,
What purpose does the gentleman rise?
as he was saying, Fort Worth, Northwest YMCA, I rise to question the bill author.
Does the bill author yield?
Yes.
How many years since the beginning of Texas time has the balance been, the budget been unbalanced?
According to my knowledge, for the last 10 years.
For the last 10 years, okay. And when you mean forfeit, do you mean 100% of all, 100% of the
100%.
sum? Okay, would you be open for an amendment to reducing that to like, say, 50%?
Of course.
And what qualifies as an unbalanced budget in the state of Texas?
Currently, it's going over the amount that they set. Even though it is an estimate, they set a pretty solid number, and they go over it every year, and so pretty much just going over it.
What if national laws are passed, such as healthcare reform, that the state of Texas then has to pay more money coming out of pocket that was not even estimated because of national legislator that we have no control
Time.
over?
Time has been called. Are there any further questions for the bill author? Seeing none, we'll now move to the proponent debate period. Please note that all amendment slips are due by the end of this period. Will the clerk please read the name of the first proponent speaker?
Stephen Hayward.
Stephen Hayward is now looking forward to speak for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
Stephen Hayward for Eastside YMCA. The job of the Texas state legislators is to do what is best for the state of Texas. I think we can all agree that being in debt and continuing to get into more debt is not what is best for the state of Texas. So if you're spending more than you have, I think we can say that's not doing your job. Now in the private sector, what happens if you don't do your job? You get fired. But the government doesn't quite work that way. We can't just fire legislators. So I think that this bill is the next best thing. You take away their salaries, so they're still doing the work, but they're not getting paid for it. And I don't think that's unreasonable because, as she pointed out, the salary for Texas state legislators is very small. It's like $7,000 something. So you pretty much have to have another source of income. So I would argue that it's not even going to hurt the legislators that much. Also, the federal deficit, or the state deficit right now is $28 billion. Now, to everyone in this room, that is a lot of money. To the government, that really isn't. We could pay that off, if we put the effort into it, we could pay that off in 5 to 10 years. It really would just take effort to do it, and that effort is currently not being expended. I think that this bill is great motivation for that to happen, and so I would urge you to vote for this bill. And I yield my time to the author's summation.
By his actions, he has yielded 1 minute and 30 seconds to the author's summation. Will the clerk please read the name of the next proponent speaker?
There are none.
Seeing none, we'll now move to the opponent speakers. Will the clerk please read the name of the first opponent speaker?
Nathan Counter.
Nathan Calvert is now looking forward to speak for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nathan Capper, Northwest YMCA, Fort Worth. While I applaud the intention of this bill, I must stand in opposition. First and foremost, this would require a constitutional amendment to the Texas Constitution. According to Article 3, Section 49 of the Texas Constitution, we already are required to have a balanced budget. Thirdly, if we implemented this bill, it would create a violation of the
Mr. Chair,
13th
what minutes
Amendment.
does the gentleman
It would
rise?
create
Stephen
an
Hayward for
involuntary
Eastside
service.
YMCA. Rise to question.
Number
Speaker.
four,
Is this
the
your yield?
no. Number 4, the legislature only meets for 140 days every other year. They set out a budget for the next 2 years. Like the author said, they make $7,200 in off years and $28,200 in session years. That comes out to $17,700 per year. Like the previous speaker said, that requires them to have some other form of income. They must either have another job or have money already. Therefore, this bill doesn't punish them at all. It's ineffective, and we can fire a legislature, by the way. It's called an election. I yield my time, Mr. Chair.
The speaker has yielded his time to the chair. Will the clerk please read the name of the next opponent speaker? Will Bergen should now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will Bergen, forward member for YMCA. This bill has good intention, but in the state of Texas, across the United States, slavery is illegal. And working without any sort of salary for a job is considered slavery. So in order to give somebody a job and then terminate their salary at the end of the fiscal year would be a considerable slave movement.
Mr. Chair,
For what purpose does the gentleman rise?
Stephen Hayward, 4th Eastside YMCA, rise to question the speaker.
Does the speaker yield?
Yes, I do.
How is it slavery if they're asking for the job and then spending money to get the job in the election?
Because you can ask for a job because, okay, say you have a regular job, you have to put in an application for said job, so you have to ask or want that job. If you do that job without a set of pay, that is considered a slave act. And with that, I yield my time to the chair.
The speaker has yielded his time. Will the clerk please read the name of the next opponent speaker?
There are none.
Seeing none, we'll now move to the amendment period. Will the clerk please read the caption of the first amendment on the table?
Adding provision that the legislator will forfeit its salary to offset the unbalanced budget.
The amendment author should now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Thank you. Azim Hussein, Forward Northwest YMCA. The reason why I've added this amendment is to put a limit of how much the state legislator will have to forfeit if this bill passes. The point is that the legislator should not be forced to pay more than the than offsetting what the budget was. So, for example, in 2010, if the budget was $10.6 billion and we actually spent $10.7 billion, there's a $0.1 billion difference. The state legislator will only have to pay up to $0.1 billion. Now, taking a fact of all revenue and stuff, say the legislator makes $0.2 billion next year. If they make $0.2 billion, they will only forfeit half of what was the half of their salary, because $0.1 billion is the amount that was that needs to offset the balanced budget. I think the purpose of this bill was to balance our budget, not balance the state of Texas's deficit. The point of this bill is to balance our budget, and we need to make it clear. Message to the people of Texas and to our state legislature.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
For what purpose does the lady rise?
Alex Manatone, Dallas North YMCA, I advise to ask this delegate.
Does the speaker yield?
I do not, and I yield my time.
The speaker has yielded his time to the chair. And the bill author should now come forward to respond to this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chandler Pruitt, Richardson, YMCA. I agree with the speaker and I agree with the intention of this amendment just to limit the amount that the legislator will have to forfeit. Thank you.
The speaker has yielded her time to the chair. Seeing that the bill author is for this amendment, would anyone like to speak against this amendment? Seeing none, the amendment author should now come to speak for a time not to exceed 1 minute.
Just making it clear again that this is just to put a limit. This is just to make this bill a little stronger and to clearly intend what the bill is supposed to do according to the caption. Thank you.
We will now vote on this amendment. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The chair is in doubt and will now take a standing vote. All those in favor, please stand. You may sit down. All those against, please stand. By a vote of 5 to 4, this amendment is not adopted. Will the clerk read the caption of the next amendment?
There are none.
Seeing none, we'll now move to the author's summation. The bill author should now come forward to speak for a time not to exceed 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chandler Pruitt, Richardson, YMCA. Fellow delegates, This ever-increasing problem absolutely cannot be ignored. This bill addresses the issue in a straightforward and conservative way while still producing results. Our legislators have a duty to their state and its taxpayers to stay within the budget that they set. They are responsible for Texas's mounting debt, and this bill holds them accountable for the amount of money that they spend. Revoking their salary as a penalty for spending over the budget presents an incentive to stay within their means and a motivation to be vigilant about the amount of money that is spent. The greater than ever estimate of Texas's deficit has revealed its highest amount yet, $28 billion. This excessive spending has to stop before it is irreversible. This bill will place our legislators back on the path of reasonable spending. Unless we want this unacceptable behavior to continue, it's time that we do something about it. And with that, I move for favorable recommendation for House or Senate action.
There's a motion on the floor for favorable recommendation for House or Senate action. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We'll now vote on this motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
The chair of the ayes do have it, and this bill is favorably recommended.